Hey, here I am, and welcome back. My name is Nathan, and if you're into urban sketching and travel sketching, you're in the right place. This week I'm going to take you through my travel sketchbook that I completed last week while I was doing the North Coast 500 route. If you don't know what the North Coast 500 route is, it is a route around the north coast of the Highlands of Scotland, and I have the map on my sketchbook for you there. This is the sketchbook that I took with me. This is a Hahnemuller A6 zigzag. It opens up like this. I've just stuck some things on the cover to make it a little bit special. So I found this postcard in a shop in Durness, and it has the route of the North Coast 500 on it. So I went with my friend Maori. We flew to Inverness and picked up a campervan and drove it across. We didn't go down here to Applecross or the Isle of Skye. We went straight up to Gairloch, so we just kind of diagonally went this way. Then we moved up to Loch Maree, and then to Durness, across past John O'Groats to Wick, then down here. We stayed in a place called Ballintore, somewhere around here, and then back to Inverness. So I started the trip by sketching some of my art supplies. I actually did this on the plane because there is a long taxi from the terminal to the runway in Barcelona. So I sketched it out, and then my plan was to paint it during the flight, but then there was an issue with the plane, so we went back to the stand, and I managed to paint all that before even leaving Barcelona. I can't remember who it was, but I saw another YouTuber saying that it's a good idea to write your name and your email address and your phone number and any socials in the front of your book, just in case you lose it while you're traveling, then people can return it to you. So I decided to do that too. On the first day, I flew from Barcelona to London Gatwick, where I met my friend Maori, who was coming from Mallorca, and then we continued to Inverness. We had a bit of a wait during the layover between meeting there and then the next flight to Inverness. So I decided to just sketch this guy who was waiting for a plane. And up here we have the departure board, and of course Inverness is on there. So I just sketched that quickly. I'm not great at sketching people, but I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I thought that looks quite nice, actually. So I'm definitely going to try and do more quick sketches of people while I'm out and about, or arting about, rather. Then moving on, welcome to Scotland. I cut this out of a little map that I found, or a kind of a welcome leaflet that was in Inverness Airport. So then we met the man that we were renting the campervan off. We actually used an app called Camplify, which is a bit kind of like Airbnb, but for campervans. And in the van, he had this sign that said, "Campervan rules, relax, unwind, enjoy," which we definitely did. On the first day, we drove from Inverness to Gairloch, where we stayed at a place called Big Sands Beach. We did drive via Loch Ness. We didn't get out and go for a big long walk next to it. We just stopped and had a look just to say, I've seen Loch Ness, because we were quite short on time and we needed to get all the way across to the other side of Scotland to get to Big Sands Beach. So here I did a sketch of the view from our van. This is where we parked up, and we could see Longer Island here, and then just past that you could see in the distance, this is the Isle of Skye, which we didn't manage to get to because we were short on time. But you can see there were campervans, motorhomes. This is actually a Highland cow, believe it or not. So we stayed there for one night. We only stayed one night in every place that we went to because we only had 5 nights. You could do the North Coast 500, you could do weeks and weeks and weeks, you could do months, whatever. But we only had 5 nights, so it was quite quick, bam, bam, bam. The next morning we got up and we left this lovely campsite. We had a little walk along, there is a beach there. We had a little walk along that beach, and we had ourselves some breakfast at Loch Maree. This is the loch here. We had a bit of lemon cake, we had some hummus and celery and some grapes. It was just a nice little breakfast, and it was a lovely day. We were very lucky for these first 2 days. It was sun, sun, sun. We could see people had got sunburnt when they had been sitting on the beach in Scotland. We actually saw this loch from a viewpoint on the evening before while going there, but I just didn't have time to sketch as you were driving down towards Gairloch. It was beautiful. Then we drove from Big Sands Beach to Clachtoll via Corrieshalloch Gorge and Ullapool. And in Corrieshalloch Gorge there was this lovely waterfall. It was a nice little walk. You only had to pay to park your car. or van. We paid £10 to park the van, but then we both had entrance to this walking route with all different kinds of trees, this gorge. It was a really deep valley with cliffs on either side, which is what a gorge is. And while we were there, we were lucky enough to see this deer, a wild deer. I painted this and it does look a little bit like a dog, so we have nicknamed that the dog deer. But, you know, it's close enough for me. Then when we went to Ullapool, we had some fish and chips. That was something that we wanted to do because fish and chips is always better by the sea. And I thought this was quite expensive, actually. I do like fish and chips and I don't mind paying for good food. But it was $15.20, so I thought that was quite a lot. But there was a sign that said, I've actually written this the wrong way around in my book, good fish isn't cheap, and cheap fish isn't good. So I suppose that's true. The only thing I noticed is that the salt and vinegar had no flavour in Scotland. Tried it a few times in different places, and there was not much flavour. Is that just me? Let me know in the comments if you think that vinegar has no flavour in Scotland. So then after Ullapool, we moved on to Clachtoll Beach, which Maori said looked like Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic because the sand was so white and so fine. It was beautiful. It was starting to get a little bit cloudy, but I quite liked this because it had these sun rays coming through. I actually just did a wash and then I took a slightly wet brush and kind of scrubbed it out to make these sun rays. And I'm really pleased with how that came out. That was good. So we sat on this beach and we had a little beer. Then we went for a little walk around there. Again, we were only staying for one night. This was the place in Clachtoll Beach. This was the entrance. Then the next day we went back to see, I think this is pronounced Ardvreck. Went to Ardvreck Castle, which we had seen on the way. But again, we were running a little bit tight on time. So we went back to go and see that the next day. And that was excellent. It was such a lovely little castle. I could have stayed there all day, but the sky was starting to get a little bit moody, as you can see here in my sketch. But I've decided that Scotland looks more Scottish with a cloudy, moody sky. It doesn't quite look right if it looks like the Caribbean, you know. We drove on from Clachtoll. We did quite a long drive up to Durness, and this is Sango Sands campsite. This was the view from our parking spot, which was parking spot 19, and you could see out to the beach. Again, beautiful white sand, but we weren't so lucky with the weather anymore. It had become windy and it had become raining. But that didn't stop us going for a walk up this little path, which was actually here. So only like, what, 100 meters from the van. And then we walked back along the beach and then back up into the van. That evening, we just pretty much spent the evening in the van. So this is where we turn over. Oh, I stuck some other things here. This is a sticker that I bought actually at Wick River, which we'll get to later. I bought this sticker that says the ultimate road trip, NC500. This is the waterfall at, I still can't say it, Corrieshalloch. I cut that out of like the welcome leaflet, but that is where we saw the deer. Because I hadn't sketched it, I decided to stick it on the cover. And then here is just another little picture of Scotland. And the North Coast 500 is in this purple part here. So this evening, this is Maori wearing a poncho. He wanted to go to the toilet, but it was raining. So he put on this poncho and ran away. And I just thought I really liked the color. It was so bright. And I think that's actually quite a good likeness of him, considering I haven't done the face. This is a game called Cribbage, which came in the van. And as it was a rainy evening and we had nothing else to do, we decided to learn how to play cribbage. We tried looking at it for a couple of days and we just didn't know. We'd never heard of it before. So then we had to turn to YouTube and we watched 2 or 3 YouTube videos before we kind of understood the game. Still not sure if we were playing it correctly, but we had invested so much time in learning how to play it, we thought, now we have to play it every night for the rest of the holiday. And we did. Is it my favorite game? No. Would I play it again? Probably not. So this is just a few things that were inside the van. So the cribbage set, you move these little pegs. This is the little kettle that we had. We cooked on the stove. This background here, this is the pattern that was on the seats and the sofa within the van. The van was from 2011, I think. This was actually Maori's idea to put this in the background to tie the page together. And I actually love it. I think that was brilliant. Brilliant idea. Thank you, Maori. By the way, some of these videos that I'm inserting are also videos that Maori took. So thank you to Maori for his collaboration. This is the passing place sign. On all of the single roads throughout the route, every 20 meters or so, there is a passing place. So you can pull in and let the other cars past or vice versa. And there were all of these passing places and a lot of sheep around. Here is our van, the van that we hired. It was called the Highland Hamish. That's the name that the man that we hired it from, Neil, he had called it that on the website. So we called it the same thing, Highland Hamish. There it is. This is a Highland cow. Highland cows everywhere, particularly up the west coast of the route. You can see lots of Highland cows. I didn't manage to take many pictures of them because I was driving. But that's what a Highland cow looks like. I really quite like that too. I think it was cute. I love the fringe. So from Sango Sands, we continued across the north coast now, going towards the east, where we got to John O'Groats. Not much in John O'Groats, gotta say. There's the John O'Groats sign, so obviously had a picture next to that. There's the John O'Groats Hotel with all of these buildings which are part of the hotel as well, I assume, next to it, all in different colours, which were quite cute. That was $3.50 to park, but you could stay all day. But I don't know why you would stay all day, because there's nothing to do, unless maybe you're going to walk to Duncansby Head. 2 kilometers, which is 1.5 miles, maybe? Not really sure on the conversion. But because it was still cold and windy and wet, we decided to take the van. So we drove to Duncansby Head. And I was desperate to see puffins. But alas, I didn't see any. I was hunting for them. I really, really wanted to see puffins. This is Duncansby Head, which has these rock formations going out into the North Sea, as you can see there. And this, I wanted to try something, so this is the drops of water on the window. This evening we stayed in Wick, at Wick River. And again, it was a rainy night, so we went back to playing cribbage. Still didn't like it. The next day we drove to Keiss Castle, which is really cute. It's right here on the edge of a cliff. There's a lot of castles down on this side of the route, down the east coast, and we really enjoyed the castles. We didn't see any puffins, much to my chagrin, but we did see a lot of razorbills, which kind of look a little bit like penguins, so close enough. Even though a puffin isn't a penguin either, but there you go. The razorbills are black and white, but because I've drawn the Scottish flag over here, I thought it might be quite nice to continue the blue into the bird, the razorbill. And these are all over the east coast, and they nest in the cliffs, so you can see them everywhere. Then we went to the Castle of Old Wick, which is this one. This was great, actually, because you could go inside and you could walk around this castle. And you could almost imagine what it would have been like living there. This is a castle from the 1200s. So what's that, the 13th century? So that's really cool. Really enjoyed that. And then that evening we stayed in a place called Ballintore. There's nothing in Ballintore, but there is a car park there where you can park, and there are toilets across the road that are free to use. So we didn't actually pay to park that night, but there is a QR code to leave a donation. So if you do stay at this place in Ballintore, please leave a donation, as we did. But there is a mermaid on a rock, kind of reminiscent of Copenhagen, but not as good. We had a look at the Google reviews, and one that I thought was really funny, it said, "Nothing around. The mermaid statue isn't that good. 1 star." Did they lie? No, don't think so. I wonder why I didn't draw anything there. So that is it. That was our last night, and then we returned the van back to Inverness. And we did have a little walk around Inverness, but I had already completed my sketchbook. Well, maybe I could draw Inverness Castle there. So we did have a little walk to Inverness Castle and along the river. Thank you so much for joining me on this sketchbook tour. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope I've maybe inspired you to go on the North Coast 500. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your friends, whether they're into sketching or traveling, or both, even better. And I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!